Hey everyone. Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Books and Shit with your girl, Charlie Author. Now, guys, as you know, I've been on a bit of a hiatus with Books and Shit after having a baby. It's just kind of gone all over the place. But I am back with I'm so excited. I am back with an episode featuring who you can see here, the wonderful, amazingly talented author, Deborah Falaye. And first of all, say hi to everyone.
Hi, guys. Hi, Charlie. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be joining you on this podcast. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of it. We spoke a little bit before about our meeting, as it were. So I'll give a quick rundown. I read Blood Scion. And that's another thing. I've been saying Scion. That is right, isn't it?
That is right. Yeah.
Some people saying Skion or Skyon. It was just,
oh my God.
Yeah. And it's just like, okay, no, it's Scion. Okay, I got it right.
It's Scion, yeah.
It is Scion. So I read Blood Scion last month. We're in August now. I read it in the early part of July. And, you know, this isn't just because Deborah is here. I don't love books instantly so often. Yeah. I've got a few. I've had the privilege of interviewing one of my favorite authors, Jay Kristoff, early last year, who's a writer I really admire, and he's amazing. And I loved his book straight away, and here we go. But, you like books, you might have a binge-worthy one. There's different things, but there are very few books that you just feel are so special immediately. And Blood Scion, here we go. This is my fairy leaf version with my wonderful tam. I have two versions of this, by the way. And I loved it immediately. It was a 5-star for me straight away. And I tagged Deborah. And, it doesn't always happen, but she saw the tag and, thanks and all this kind of stuff. And I reached out, hoping, said, could you join me on podcast? And here you are. So I'm going to, obviously, once I do this intro and stuff and we go into, I will let you just speak away. But let me know first, we'll go on to the book, obviously. But let me know first about your journey towards writing, getting this amazing book.
Oh, man. That was honestly, thank you so much for that intro, by the way. It meant so much to me. Honestly, like when I read your review, it meant the absolute most to me because this is a book that it took 10 years to write. We'll talk about that soon, but I never thought that anyone would ever read this book or let alone have it published or let alone just have people who really love it. So every time I see like a review, it blows my mind because I'm like, wait, like, are you guys sure you're talking about my book? So just thank you so much for the amazing review. It meant the world to me. But the journey to publishing Blood Scion. Well, I grew up in Nigeria, so I spent like 12 years of my life in Nigeria. And while I was there, my grandmother, I was very close with her, and she would constantly tell me these stories about like the Orisha gods, and that it was steeped in our spirituality, steeped in my culture. So I carried that fascination of like the Orisha pantheon with me. Moving to Canada and subsequently growing up here. So when I decided like I wanted to be a writer, I love writing poetry. First of all, I've always loved writing poetry, as bad and as terrible as it is. I absolutely love it because it just really gets that sort of creative well flowing for me. So that was like kind of like the first thing I dabbled in. And then I remember when I was in high school and I was like, you know what? I want to write a book. And at the time, I didn't know the whole, publishing industry and just like how to go about that. But I just really knew that, right? No one really knows.
They're just books.
It's just
don't know how they're made, where they come from. They're just books.
They just appear. I had like a summer internship at the library near my house. So I had access to like a lot of books and I could check them out. I could check out however many books I wanted. And I absolutely loved it. So, obviously, naturally, we're all devourers of like storytelling books, whatever. So I was like, you know what? what, I want to write my own. The first book I ever wrote was a YA contemporary, and it was just an absolute mess. I finished it in such a frenzy. And I was like, well, how do you edit this book? Like, what do you do now? And I had no idea how to edit the book. And the one thing about me is, if I'm like in the editing stage, just to procrastinate, I come up with new ideas.
Yes.
So that was when the idea for Blood Scion came out, because I was trying to avoid editing the YA contemporary book. And, and with Blood Scion, you know, it took me back to my grandmother and the stories she used to tell me, the stories I grew up on. And at the time, you know, this was 2012, and the YA space didn't really have any sort of like mythology that was outside of like the Western culture. So I just really thought, how cool would it be to write a story featuring my culture, featuring like the Orishas in all of like their glory, and just like really building this like world around this mythology and the setting and the background. And that's how Blood Scion came to be. So for the past 10 years, I just wrote and wrote several different versions of the book, revised as much as I could. In 2017, I believe, I got into Pitch Wars. So that was like a pathway for me actually to getting published, because I had the most amazing mentors, and I participated in like the agent round, and we got a lot of like agent requests.
Yeah.
I couldn't actually send my work to them because the book was not done. I wasn't done revising it.
Yeah.
And then I spent all of 2018 getting married, because I'm Nigerian. So we have to have two weddings, the traditional and like the actual wedding. Yeah. And I spent all of 2018 planning this wedding. And so while I should have been revising the book, so I just really had to put the book to the back burner because I was getting married. And then during like around like my wedding period, I got an opportunity to write like an IP work for another company at the time. So I actually got chosen for that. Like, so how that works, you send like a couple chapters. If they're interested, then, you know, they'll tell you like, okay, we want you to work on this book.
Yeah.
So they said that to me, and I said, okay, that's great. But my mentors from Pitch Wars had advised me that, hey, I think you should get an agent to negotiate this deal for you. But I don't have a book. Blood Scion still wasn't done. So I was like, how's this going to go? I wasn't sure, but I decided I was going to query 5 of the agents from Pitch Wars, like the top 5 agents for me from Pitch Wars. Query them with like an unfinished manuscript of Blood Scion. I had 5 chapters. Well, I had 10 chapters, but I sent them the first 5, and I was like, listen, I have an IP project. I need someone to negotiate this. This is Blood Scion. It's still not done, but do you guys want to represent me?
Seems like you have power in your hands at this point.
Listen, it was very unorthodox. Like, it was not, that's not the conventional way to publishing, because usually you have to have the full book. You have to have, you know, all of that. But I didn't. But I think because I had the IP project ready to go, it sort of like, I guess, gave me a little bit of negotiating power, I guess, with them. And, you know, none of them had a reason to pick me and say, hey, we want to work with you. But they saw something in Blood Scion that made them very interested, even though the book still wasn't done. They saw something in it that made them very interested. And I got like an offer of representation from that. I got my first agent from that. And what we did was, the IP project ended up not working out. So we decided to just focus all our energy on Blood Scion. And with the 10 chapters of Blood Scion that I had, we decided that, hey, why don't we try to sell this on proposal? Which is, again, not something that you do. Again, you're supposed to have a full manuscript, but she really believed in the story. She believed in those 10 chapters. And we sent it off to like editors like around, basically when I came back from like honeymoon. So late October or early November 2018. And we got an offer from HarperCollins, and that's like my lovely editor at Harper, Kristen Petty, around December. So everything literally was just, it happened so fast. So that's like the strange journey to publication for me.
Yeah, so two things I'm getting obviously from this story. So the first one, sorry to bring it back a bit, but obviously a lot of my listeners are kind of indie authors and upcoming, Syrian and trad. So just a quick explanation of the IP project, as in what that is and what that entails quickly. And then the other thing was, so you said 2012 and then 2018 was writing it. That was like 6
Yes,
years.
that was like writing to selling it. Yeah.
Yeah, right, to sell it. And then from 18 onwards is the next part of the journey. So just explain the IP part quickly, just for those who want to know.
So the IP part, I there are like several companies that sort of do like IP projects where they have the idea. It's basically their idea, and
They want someone to
they
execute.
want someone to execute it. They want someone to write it. So I can't really say which company this is, but this was like a company at the time that, you know, worked a lot with like a lot of like YA authors, or maybe I think they mostly did YA actually. And yeah, I actually got the offer through one of my mentors who at the time was also working with them. So she pitched me this idea, said, "Hey, I think that you could really do something great with this. You would have to write." So they would send you like, I guess, like the pitch for the story,
Yeah, like a
and
brief.
you just, yeah, like a little, you know, these are the characters, this is like the world, this is what we're trying to go with, and you would just write what comes to you from that.
Yeah,
So they wanted like the first chapter from me,
yeah,
and I did that, sent it to them, and they, you know, the editors who work with them, they would read it. If they think that it's, you know, something that they wanted to work on,
yeah,
they would then go on to like sort of give me their feedback, like revise it. And so
yeah,
we did a lot of revisions back and forth, you know,
yeah.
just to make sure that we could, you know, work well together. And that was how that went.
And then
And yeah,
obviously
like
it didn't obviously work out, but
it
you
didn't work out. Yeah. Because again, like I think because it's IP, there's a lot that goes into it when it comes to payment.
yes,
How much you're paid, like if you're
yeah,
getting like a royalty from it. So it's a whole bunch of things
yeah.
that
I started
happen.
I started down a small road with that, and kind of looking into other ways you can kind of
Mhm.
get this kind of thing. And I had a few offers, but the theme wasn't really right for me. Like
Yeah.
recently, my most recent book, obviously self-published, is a shifter novel. So other stuff
Okay.
goes on, but they are wolves. And they suddenly were just kind of sending me all these paranormal fantasy books, and I was just like, I just kind of made mine wolves to be a bit different. I don't
Yeah.
actually want to write this, so it didn't work out that way. But
Yeah.
thank you for that explanation, just for those that.
Mhm.
Another thing I want to take from that, you've obviously got that connection with the IP through Pitch Wars, which
Mhm.
unfortunately was it debunked this year?
I
After
know. Yeah.
7
I
years.
know. It was such a bittersweet moment.
Oh gosh, like I was so upset because not necessarily been on this same journey for 10 years with this book. I
Mhm.
The last two was, we said mention at the beginning, not really knowing where do books come from. So the
Yeah.
last 2 years was the most I've put, work, effort, understanding into knowing how to get what's in my head
Um,
here. And then as soon as I discover that, the biggest thing that has got people
I
there
know.
decides to F off. And I was just like, oh, so mad. Like there was never any guarantee it would ever work for me, but it was just like,
Mhm.
oh my God, like where did
I
it
know. I
so
know. I heard though. I heard that there's, you know, obviously there's also Davy Pitt, right? Which is just also doing amazing work for a
yeah,
lot of like marginalized authors. But I heard, and I don't know if this is true, that there's, you know, some development coming up where I believe some of like the old mentors from Pitch Wars, you know, might be putting something together. I really hope it happens
yeah,
because Pitch Wars was just that thing that it just fostered a lot of people's careers. Like some of like the biggest names in YA came from Pitch Wars.
yeah,
That whole thing did so much for so many different people. And yeah, I hope somehow someone finds a way to bring up something like that and just have it going, because a lot of us, like, we benefited from it.
definitely. Okay,
Yeah.
let's move on slightly. So you've obviously mentioned, how you started writing Blood Scion as in the idea came while you were doing something else. And obviously you mentioned the influence of your grandmother in your culture, your Nigerian culture. And one of the things I did want to point out, so in my review, I did mention that I was a bit apprehensive about reading another Black fantasy based in and of and around Orisha magic. And, obviously absolutely nothing wrong with it, but it did feel like at one point, because you've been writing it for 5-10 years, but it feel like at one point, all the publishers and all the agents said, we're all going to publish Black people and we're all going to publish the same story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this is what we want. We want our Children of Blood and Bone. We want that we want our next Song of Wraith and Ruin. Everybody was writing, quote unquote, the same book. And I don't want that to be a disrespect to my peoples, because how many kind of other non-brown books are the same book and they keep coming out. But what kind of frustrated me about that was just, there are so many other stories to tell. So it's like, I wanted a bit more of that. But as I said, that's not, a put down or a disrespect to the book. It was just my initial thought going in. That, okay, be different because blah, blah, blah. Honestly, I know I've fangirled a bit already, but what hit me was not what I thought I was going into. And that just blew my mind from the first, I want to say 2-3 chapters. And I was so happy to have been proven wrong, basically. And I was messaging my friends, like on Instagram, we've got like a little bookish group.
Yeah.
I was like, guys, I'm 2 chapters in and this is my I kept messaging them like, you have to read this book. I kept going back in with quotes. We'll get to that later. That hitting me in the feels, man. Like, because sorry, as I said, I'll go off and let you talk. But one of the things that blew my mind is the wonderful mix of the fantasy that I didn't necessarily expect to be done this way. But the blend of the contemporary, obviously, violence of children. Soldiers, of child soldiers. So that was touching in and of itself. So that was like, okay, because I don't know much about that. So to have it in that context and wrapped in this fantasy bow just made it even better. So as it says on the screen, concept for Blood Scion, where did it come from to kind of, as I said, to merge those two things?
Well, I mean, listen, that's a great question because I absolutely love talking about this. So, like I said, when Blood Scion started in 2012, I knew that the, cultural aspect of it meant so much to me. Growing up in Nigeria, it meant so much to me to, not only bring that spirituality to light, but also to like honor my grandmother in that way and the stories that she told me. But I always knew that there was something missing from the book. I always knew that, after writing the first draft, like, sure, the culture is there, but I wanted it to go beyond that. So fast forward to 2014, and there was this huge, situation that happened in Nigeria with the Bring Back Our Girls, where hundreds of young girls had gotten kidnapped from a school in Nigeria. And it was such a huge deal. Really hit me hard because I was in university at the time and we were talking about it in my class, and, people were sort of like looking to me like, oh, you're Nigerian. What do you think about this? And I couldn't really put into words like what it did for me, like what happened as a result of that, of just, knowing that I grew up in this country. I went to school like those young girls did. That could have happened to anybody, such a terrible thing. And I really didn't understand, but I knew how it affected me. I knew how heartbreaking it was. So I went on like a spiral of research into these girls' stories and what happened to them, and just hearing some of the really terrible things that they went through. It was just shocking. The most unreal thing, that no child should ever have to go through that. And that kind of led me into the whole research on child soldiers, because at the time I didn't really understand it myself either.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was what was happening to some of these girls, and I really needed to understand like the whole concept of using children as like weapons,
Yeah.
weapons of war. Just those, like, the whole war on children in general is just the most horrible thing. And just things that we can't even grasp. Like the reading all like the research and the years of research and just the books that I read that touched on these things, like the memoirs, the letters, the work that some of these organizations are doing on these kids. It's like you really start to just think to yourself, like, there's a whole reality out there that's so separate from us.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's just like, you wouldn't wish that on your worst enemy,
You can't
but
fathom.
you can't fathom it. And in doing that, the story kind of just came together. I knew then, like, this is what I want to talk about. This is like, this is something I'm very passionate about, that I really want to put out there, because again, you don't really see books. I mean, I don't know if there is actually any book about child soldiers that's written in like a fictional way,
Yes.
other than like just like memoirs from, former
People
child soldiers who've
do it.
gone through this. So I really wanted to bring that to light. I really wanted to lend a voice to this situation. And I knew that if I could marry those two ideas together, like, I wanted to write about my culture, the spirituality of it, but I also wanted to write about the concept of, how young kids are being dehumanized and, turned into weapons of war. And the whole concept of Blood Scion kind of came from that, like the idea of a young girl who's grappling with her culture, but also grappling with like the loss of her identity, and her fight and this journey to not only reclaim her culture, but to also reclaim herself.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just, once I had those two things and was able to put them together, it's like everything kind of just came from that. Like everything, like the story just, I guess, people say the story wrote itself, but I mean, I wouldn't say it wrote itself, because it was a lot. It was a lot. Me and drafting, we do not work together at all. Drafting is like the worst part of the process for me, but the story told itself, I'll say that. And yeah, so that's how the concept for Blood Sign came to be.
I love it. I love it so much. No, I really do. As I said, I've been fortunate enough to interview a few authors now, both indie and trad. But the trad ones have always been, well, I guess that's the point. But the trad ones have always been books that I really, really love. So
Yeah.
it always just makes me sound like I'm this just super butt kissing person. But obviously, I wouldn't interview someone I didn't like. It doesn't make sense. But no, I really, as I said, respect, as I said, that marrying of the two things, because I went in as a skeptic thinking I was going to this, and that blend of those two things really hit me and really touched me, especially from, as we said, a concept that I can never fathom. I've never been a child soldier, to a certain extreme. I'm not African. Like, I'm Black, but I'm not African. There's this, that sense of identity that you mentioned that I've never kind of had to deal with the way my friends who might be called, Ola Falade kind of thing, shorten their names to just Olu because people don't know how to pronounce it. I've always been Charlotte. I've got my westernized name. There's things that even as part of the Black and brown culture, you can still learn from reading other people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Other people's experiences, and it was absolutely beautiful, in a heartbreaking way. So the next thing, obviously, we've got Blood Scion on the screen. So for those, we've just been talking because we know what we're talking about.
I know.
For those who don't know, in your own words, or what you want them to know about it, what it's about. What is Blood Scion about? What's the pitch here?
Okay. I always somehow butcher this, bitch.
About what our books are about.
Oh my God, it's so hard. Immediately you ask, and I'm just like, wait, what is this book about? Okay, well, I'm gonna try here. So, Blood Sign is a YA fantasy, and the story follows a young girl named Sloane, who at the age of 15 gets drafted into the Veil military that's been hunting her kind for centuries. So what they don't know is that Sloane is a Scion, and by that it means that she's a descendant of like the Orisha gods. But because she lives in a world that has been colonized, her race, her entire people have been basically wiped out. Her land has been taken over by, the colonizers. She has to hide who she is and basically live her life just afraid of hopefully no one finding out her real identity. So that's obviously sort of like messed her up in a lot of ways because she can't be who she truly is. And she's having to like hide this firepower that she has. And it's a struggle.
Cool. It's a very
cool. Because she can't keep that fire contained. So it's a big struggle. But then it gets even worse when she gets drafted into the military to basically fight for these people who have been hunting her kind for centuries. And what that means is now she's having to travel to their island and their military camp and be there for she's conscripted for 3 years, but she has to train for 30 days.
30 days. Right? 30 days. And she's doing mad shit in 30 days. It's shocking. Oh my God.
Oh my God. Yeah. And just, we see a whole bunch of, really the crazy decisions and the things that she has to do for the sake of, survival and just, even if it means destroying her morality in the process. But then, my girl comes up with like an idea to, I'm going to go here. I'm going to, be their soldier, but her mom's been missing for 2 years. So she decides that she's going to use that opportunity to find out information about her mother. But not only that information that she discovers about her mom obviously leads her on a path of vengeance. And we just really see this badass girl decide that she's no longer gonna take a lot of like the, I guess, terrible horrors that she and other kids have like endured. So she goes on a war path basically to fight for herself, not only fight for herself but fight for her people, and like I said before, reclaim her identity and culture.
Love it. I said the most difficult thing when I'm doing this is obviously you have to speak in a way that doesn't spoil it for people.
Right.
But no, that's exactly it. And I think you've obviously said it in a great way. There's so much to unpack in this story. And it's just like, even looking at the cover and stuff, you don't have much choice over this stuff, do you?
We do. I mean, well, not a lot, but I was lucky enough. My editor kind of brought me along for the ride. They asked me what I thought, like the, initial ideas for a cover. I said I wanted a badass warrior on the front cover. But I, wanted it to, reflect the culture and just also reflect her vulnerability and just her story basically. And then we got like the most incredible artist, Taj Francis, who's just amazing. I'm not sure if you're familiar with his work, but he's just absolutely incredible. And he did that and I just absolutely fell in love with it.
No, I do. I really do love it. And as you've said what you kind of wanted from it, I feel that now more so than I did before, because it's kind of like her end game pose, if that makes sense. So it's what she achieves kind of by the end. But so initially it doesn't, it doesn't expose the explosiveness that's inside. Like, it's a wonderful cover. There's just, there's no disrespect. Sorry, because I've got my blur. It keeps being weird.
Oh yeah, I can see that though.
Yeah. But, there is so much else in here. Like, you call it a YA, but there are such deep and adult, mature themes going on in here.
Yeah. Well, you know what, though? For me, I always, I call it YA, obviously, because that's just the space that it sits in. But, for me, I know that the book is very much skilled towards, like, the adult audience. Obviously, there's a lot of really dark things in there, like a lot of really really heavy themes that yeah, so I think it balances that aspect
Yeah.
of crossover, I want to say, both YA, but it can also really
Yeah.
work well in like the adult space.
Do you believe in NA, the whole new adult thing?
I wish that it took off. I really do, because I think that there's a space for it.
Oh, 100. Mm,
Absolutely, you know, especially with how YA kind of goes from 14 to 18 or 19.
mm,
It's like there's a difference between 14, 15, 16 to like 17 to 19. You
yeah,
know, the things that, you know, were happening at 14 are not the same things happening at
yeah.
15. They're not even the same things happening at 16 or 17.
No,
So I
true.
really wish, yeah, I really wish there was like a kind of like a little separation there.
There definitely needs
Um,
to be. There definitely.
yeah, even just the idea of like upper YA, which I think a lot of
Yeah,
authors are starting to use now. Like,
yeah.
if the
That
publishers are not going to use it, you know,
oh,
authors are going to use it. I think upper YA
I
is
mean,
something
the
that.
power, it starts with you guys, I guess, or with us, should I say? Like, when
Mhm.
we keep pushing an agenda, it eventually has to take on like wildfire.
Right.
You know what I mean? Well,
Right.
we hope. So we've been going around all this kind of stuff, but now I'm gonna try a little bit talk about the book without doing some spoilers. Okay, Lord help me.
I
So,
know.
Sloane, 15, you know, lost her mother, lives with her Baba, her grandfather.
Grandfather, yeah.
You know, we love Baba, love him so much.
Oh.
And I love that as well because my partner is Greek Cypriot, and the word for father is Baba in Greek Cypriot. So, like, that's what
Yeah.
wants our daughter to call her, which is really sweet. But she has a relationship with her friend Teo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, really. Lord, has a relationship with Teo. She also has a relationship with, if that's what we can call it, with a dude called Malachi. Um, she's also got another friend. Sorry, I'm terrible with the names. What's the lady's
Luna?
Luna?
Luna, yeah.
And then when she does eventually get drafted, you know, she gets her motley crew, and you know, she's got the boyfriend and girlfriend. What are their names?
Yeah, Jericho and Nazanin.
There you go. And
Yeah.
then she meets the love interest guy, but we're not
The commander, well, like the squad leader, yeah.
the squad leader. And even though I was meant to do it in a different part, one of the questions that I got from my listeners, readers, friends, when I said I was interviewing you, is one of them said, was there any possibility that Malachi was going to be the love interest? Like, did
You
that
know what?
path ever cross?
No, I will tell you. It never did, but I will say this. When I was writing, there was a scene that I was writing. I was like, huh.
Yeah,
I was like, huh. I had a little pause because
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
read that scene over and I was like, I kind of love this.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, I think I know where you're going with this.
yeah,
Well, is
but
it
you
a scene
know,
that's in the book? Is it a scene
yeah,
that
a scene that's in the book. Yeah.
translated
I was like, I kind of love this. I was like, oh, that sucks.
No, I think there's something that speaks to our, you know, more adult, dark, twisted hearts where if he's going to be that shitty to her, it has
Yeah.
to be because he likes her.
Right.
It's just like, you know, without too much of a spoiler, when he didn't turn out to be the one that liked her, I was like, damn, I'm like, you know, I wanted to happen. Like, what does that say about me? I don't know. But that was one of the questions, whether or not there was ever a possibility for those guys
I
to
will say this. I think that if it wasn't for, because there was like a short story that I wrote early on during pitch wars. Like my mentors actually asked me, they asked me to do this just to kind of like get things flowing, really understand the character a little bit more. And you know, there's a thing called wooden willing in the book, which is just skating.
yeah,
It's just
yeah,
skating, but it's got a different name. And Sloan and Malachi, they've always had, even from like when they were kids, they've always had this rivalry going on. yeah, and there was a point in the book where it said that they all used to skate together, and Malachi, Jericho, I mean not Jericho, Malachi, Tio, Luna, they all, like, in the village, they all used to skate together. I think that if not for the past between them, it would have been really interesting, because I love rivalry. Like, I love the whole idea of, like, rivalry turning into, like, some sort of, like, romance.
Yeah.
So I think in a different world.
Enemies
In a
to
different world.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, enemies to lovers is one of my favorite tropes. Love triangle. I love a love triangle, because I was ready for sorry, you call him Tio, so Tio.
Yeah.
I was ready for Tio, Malachi, Sloan thing going on. Like, no matter what I read, it could be the darkest thing I've ever read, but I'm looking for the romance, guys. I'm the romance.
Same.
I was ready for that. But obviously, without revealing too much, no, I'm not going to say that. Start getting.
It's so hard to talk about the book without spoilers.
I'm going to stick with the Malachi part and just say how much of a great villain he was. In the sense, like, that's not too much of a spoiler. Like, he's an antagonist from day one.
From day one, you see that, yeah.
One, like, but I really did love him because, I'm sorry, genuine fear. Whenever she said, like, Malachi was looking at me, or Malachi was like, she gonna die. Like, I was shook for her.
Listen,
horrible. And it worked so well because his, feelings towards her were completely justified. And not to say he should be walking around murdering anyone, but I understood his pain and I got it. So whenever he was giving her the evil eye and the daggers, I was like, oh, he's gonna kill her. Like,
listen, I think for me, that's the one thing I really love about Malachi. I know their readers are so split on him. There are people who get him, and there are people who are just like, Malachi must die. And I was just like, I get it, but you also have to sympathize with him. And I think when I'm crafting my characters, I really focus on, like, their backstories a lot, because I think their backstories inform how they navigate the world. So we get to find out what Malachi's backstory is, and how can you not feel for him? Like,
I did.
I did. And also just having to dealing with what he went through at such a young age. Like, they're all 15, they're still young, but at such a young age, having to go through what he went through, and just navigating his world alone. From that point on, it's like, that does something to you. It does something to you. And for me, it wasn't a stretch to imagine that he would be full of so much anger and rage and just absolute destroy this person at all costs. And another thing I like to do is, with all of my characters, I treat them like they're the main character.
Oh, I love that.
So if you were to flip it around and Malachi was the main character on his journey, we would absolutely be rooting for him.
Yes, definitely.
Right?
Yes, because
that's the way I see that.
Because he had his own things to fight for. Sloan had
exactly
Mom and Luna, but he obviously has his family that, not too much of a spoiler, but had his family that he lost for very long. So I definitely I love that. Treating all characters as main characters, because it gives them depth. It gives them place.
Oh, absolutely.
Even
absolutely.
if they survive until the last page, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to touch on what you said. Just one word. You talked about, obviously, him navigating his world alone, which was sad. And obviously, I can't talk too much because it's just a massive spoiler. But Sloan and Tio dealing with their revelation alone, I was like, oh my God, why didn't you just say?
I know.
I've never been angrier.
The scene that they had together in her, like, in the house.
Yes, okay. So
I wanted to convey, before all that, before everything went haywire. You could tell if you go back to that scene. It's like, I mean, from Sloan's perspective, we know, like, what she's thinking, but I feel like everything was there with Tio. He was, all he had to say was one word, right?
Okay.
Like, but you could tell that he really wanted, like, he really wanted to say this. But, you know, talking about the world building and just like the state of this world, they live in a world where if anyone learns that you're a Scion,
Mm.
they can basically report you to
Yes.
save themselves.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So him not knowing who
Mm.
he's talking to, not
Yeah.
knowing who Sloane is,
Yeah.
he's probably thinking in his head, like, if I say this, could she
Get
use this for her? You know what I mean? Because, and I think that's the thing about the world that I really love, is like everyone's sort of like living on the edge of like that blade,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
wanting to trust, but not quite trusting fully.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, there's a bit of doubt there with everybody,
Yeah.
even with the way Sloane interacts with her friends. With
Mm-hmm.
Luna, it's like, I want to tell her things, but I can't tell her things, you know? And it's like, it's such a terrible way to live, because I can't, for me, if I have secrets, the whole world will know. So I will tell everybody.
Like, he was just constantly on a knife edge. There was just so much tension. And I think one of my favorite things about this book and why I loved it so immediately is because so much had happened so quickly, but not in
Mhm.
a rush of information type way.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it opens with her essentially being attacked.
Yeah.
And I understood who she was being attacked by, why she was being attacked by them, what she had to hide by
Mhm.
saving herself. Like everything was told in that first 2 chapters that I just
Right.
unravel everything else. It was like, I've got it now, but what do I do with it? Oh my God. And it was just so, yeah, it was just so good. I can't even,
Thank you.
it was just so good. What I do want to move on to, because I don't want to keep you too long,
That's okay.
is this is going to be my favorite part now. And this is it's going to be the super fangirl moment. So as I said, I got my little tabs here. So the pink ones were all the kind of quotes that I really, really liked. And I put
Okay.
green ones so I could remember which ones I wanted to bring up, just to so you can let me know kind of
Okay.
where your headspace was at, like why you wrote it, that kind of stuff. So there's not going to be much context, guys, but it's awesome. So the first one, where are we? First one that I got says, all right. If all of this belongs to us, if we are the rulers of the land, then why do we have to hide? The response is, because, Sloane, there are people, horrible people who have stolen what belongs to you. People so threatened by your magic that they'd sooner destroy you for fear of what they do not understand.
Mhm.
I felt that not just for the words, but, and we're going to be very transparent here, guys, I felt this for the racial tension
Oh
in it.
yeah,
Yeah?
absolutely.
It's not magic here, it's the color
Mm-mm.
of skin here.
Yep.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
People so threatened by your blackness that they'd sooner destroy you for fear of not understanding it. And
Absolutely.
I thought that was amazing.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you very much.
I mean, no, honestly, 100% is
Yeah.
right, because, you know, the fact that this book took 10 years, there's a lot that has transpired in the 10 years of writing it. There's a lot of racial issues that we've seen all over the world, but especially, you know, in the Western world.
Yeah.
The police brutality, the racism against Black people, a lot of like the really terrible, sad, you know, events that have like taken place. And I've had to write this book through all of that. I've had to deal with those things and my understanding of those things, and the fear that I felt in hearing some of these stories, the anxiety around the color of my skin, all of those things, I've had to deal with it while writing this book. So for me, it wasn't just a book about the culture or the child soldiers. It was also a book about the racial tension that exists, and just how you're perceived for being Black, and how people can weaponize your Blackness sometimes, and think of it as something that they have to destroy just because, like the quote says, because they don't understand
Yeah.
what it is. So yeah, that was absolutely where my mind was when I wrote that, and there's traces of that all over the book.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. No, this one, the next quote, it leads nicely into what you said about obviously using your blackness to destroy and this kind of stuff. And even though it may be true and it's a truth of life, Rachel's tension
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. I don't want to come across as an other bashing person. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to uplift my blackness all the time. I'm not going to be sorry for it. This one, this quote kind of highlighted what we have as I've lost the word now, but how we discriminate amongst ourselves, so amongst other Black people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this one now says, sorry if I pronounce this wrong, it's some of the yogas in here. Women in printed booba blouses or
Yeah.
baba blouses and trailing Eero wrappers were gunned down. Men were slain at palm wine taverns for whispering dialects that sounded strange and unfamiliar. But it was the deaths of the newborn babies that brought the nation to its knees. Babies with skin the color of ebony wood, babies born too brown or too black. Now, the top part, I guess, basically Sloane sees the colonizers wearing her traditional attire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that first half is just all about cultural appropriation.
Right.
Right? So I was like, exactly.
Yeah.
The second part, as I said, kind of the mix of our own self kind of deprecation
Mm-hmm.
is, there is that idea that if you are too Black, that is an issue. We've
Oh
got
yeah.
we've got the colorism talks as well.
Mm-hmm.
That was another one that kind of touched me because
Yeah.
there's so much that we can talk about people treating us a certain way, but the way
Mm-hmm.
we treat ourselves is a whole other
Oh,
fight.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
was I right? And on that.
Yeah, again, absolutely. I think even within the African space as well, colorism is such a huge thing. Let alone just within like Black spaces also. They talk about it in the media. Some celebrities who are too dark, they don't really get as much as celebrities who are like lighter skin. We see it play out every day. For me, it made sense to kind of merge that into the whole cultural appropriation. The word kind of skipped me for a second. Aspect of it, because I think it makes sense to what it is that Black people go through, especially dark skinned people, especially dark skinned men and women. We see, like, when I wrote that quote, I had watched a video by Amandla Sternberg.
Oh
I don't
yes,
know if I'm saying it right. And I
Steinberg,
think, yeah,
maybe.
I think they go by Day. So I'm gonna use Day. But they had said in the video, it was like something like don't crash on my crops or whatever. And it was basically talking about like cultural appropriation within like the Hollywood space, and just, you know, people who how white people can wear cornrows and it's seen as like high fashion, but
Yeah,
Black people do that, and we're basically told, hey, your hair is like unkempt, or those type of things. So yeah, like that was my train of thought around that, and then to just kind of like merge it with the idea that, okay, not only are you going through that, but now it's like dark skinned people are also, it's like almost like a double whammy in a
yeah,
sense, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that was absolutely my thought process there.
Thank you. One thing I did want to touch on that I was a little bit unclear about, and it was weird. Like I didn't go back to try and figure it out because I just wanted to see if how my brain would take to it. The colonizers, are they Black too?
No,
They're not, are they?
no, they're not.
Yeah, because I just obviously I had it in my head, like, this blonde white woman walking around with a gele. And I'm like, what? That was me. Like,
No, yeah, no. So,
they're not.
so,
What do
so
they
no, they're not.
Yeah.
The world basically. I'm not sure if you've seen the film 2012, the End of the World film.
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah, where the whole world just basically gets destroyed, and then like the remaining people, they like are on the ship and they're headed to like South Africa.
Yeah. Okay.
That was like how that film ended. It was like Africa was like the only continent remaining and they were headed there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That, for me, I see Blood Scion as like the part 2 of that.
Okay.
So you've got the old world, the Western world all destroyed, and you've got like basically these like elites, like these white elites, coming in and you know, on their ships and settling on this land, and then just being like, we're gonna take this land over. Yeah, so that was the thought process there.
When, you know, there were scenes about her being attacked by some of the guards and stuff, and it did mention Pale Hand and then when she meets Dane, I'm assuming he's mixed race, isn't he?
He is. So the thing with him is that he's like I try to vary the fact that the colonizers are specifically the Lucys. So Avalon itself as an island works in a sense where it is diverse. But the ones who are like the ruling overlords are white.
Okay.
But they've brought in like the same way that where Sloane lives, like Malachi, for example, he's not like her. He's brown, right? Luna is Hispanic. So it's like the world is like supposed to be diverse in that sense. And with Dane, it's like he's not one of them. He's not one of the colonizers. He's just a byproduct of you know, that. And I try to reflect that in like the way he sort of like in the beginning was thinking about things, and she would constantly like question him, like, is that what they thought you at like your colonizer school? You know,
what, though? We can't even talk about him. I mean, that's a spoiler in itself, but we're not gonna talk very upset about that. But no, I like that because, you know, without going too deep, because I've got another one to go, you know, that can go back to obviously the whole slavery thing, because you know, the masters who obviously are all white and they slaves, and they had obviously mixed race babies, and then depending on how the father treated said offspring, were either, you know, you're not one side or the other. You're black to be white, you're too white to be black. So you know, that you can unpick that in so many ways. I really like that as well. This one, let me find the other one. Yes, so it's just a quick one, but I did just, you know, it was in the fields. It says, how is it that even though they are the ones with their hands to the guns, somehow we are the objects of their fear, the symbol of so much hatred that they must kill us in order to feel safe, in order to feel peace? Police brutality quote 101. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm sorry. I was looking at this book. I was feeling, because I was like, obviously I hadn't spoken to you at this point, but I was like,
I mean, again, that's exactly what that was.
I was like, this is perfect. Just enough. Like, I just don't have any words, because I was just singing all the praises. I got like 10 of my friends to read this after. What was the other one? Okay. Obviously, because I put the stickers, but I need to find the first line of the sentence. Hold on. All right. These people, I think it's this one, they thrive on taking power over our minds, our bodies, our emotions. Oh, yes, this is one. They think because we are girls that we are something to be preyed upon. They are wrong. We are not helpless. We are not broken. Despite what scars they leave behind, our bodies are our own. Everything we feel, everything we are belongs to us and us alone. Yes, we are girls, but we are not prey. Tonight, we are alive.
That scene, that chapter broke me, by the way. If there's one chapter that was the toughest to write, that was it. It was the toughest to write. I cried writing it. I cried reading it. It was tough.
No, I can imagine, because, you know, not to say in a funny way, but this, I was reading this obviously last month, so this was just around the Roe versus Wade time.
Mm-hmm.
So to read literally our bodies are our own, literally having a ruling that tells us that it's not.
That's not. Mm-hmm.
It was just like this. I was like, this book is prophetic. This is my Bible. Do you know what I mean? Because it was just like, we're not helpless just because we're, you know, like the war against women, it's a real thing. You know,
absolutely.
childcare is expensive, so it's forcing us back into the home, and you know, all this kind of. It was just, oh, man. It's just too. Like, was it? I'm gonna let you finish, but it's just too much. There was just so much good stuff. I've got two more. Hold on, what's this? I've got two more. Where is it? Every day, which is okay. Here we go. Every day we shed pieces of ourselves, our humanity, just to prop up a monarchy whose very hands are stained with the blood of our people. No, I don't want freedom. I want justice. I want to see the fear in Olympia's eyes as she's forced to watch everything she loves go up in flames, everyone she holds dear crumble to ash. Then I want to kill her. Obviously, that end bit was a bit much, but the bit about propping up a monarchy with blood on the hands, like if we want to be specific, like, you know, like blood diamonds, like all in the crowns and the crown jewels of like the British monarchy and shit. Oh,
yep. She was living in her little Killmonger.
Straight up. Killmonger, greatest villain ever created.
She was channeling a little bit of him there.
Yeah. No, that was wonderful. As I said, I'm doing my whole fangirl moment, but it was just wonderful. Like I'm gonna do one more, but I did end my review like literally saying, and I mean this with my whole heart, you are the writer I want to be. And I feel really teary saying that because, you know, we can write stories. We love stories and we're able to weave them and, you know, have fun and laugh at stuff and might be have a cheeky sex scene. But to touch people in a way that they're tabbing words, and it's just, you're a talent. You're
gonna make me cry.
Honestly, I feel really teary because I've never resonated with something, even though I've never been a soldier, I'm not African, I'm not even American or Canadian, but I was to be able to bridge those gaps between all things that I've never even been a part of is a feat in itself. Like, you've done such an amazing thing. So when people say things like, oh, I'm not from there, or I don't speak that language, so I can't relate to a book, I'm sorry, you're fucking lying. You're lying. If somebody's writing something as well as you've written this book, you could be from Mars and feel people's pain. Do you know what I mean? And it was just really amazing. Last one, and then I'm gonna stop gushing. Says, okay, last one. After centuries of oppression, of torment and pain and suffering, they dare to judge me for my rage. Silence, it's what they want. But Mama once told me, when the world tries to silence you, do not go quiet, scream slowly. Obviously, centuries of oppression, you know what that is.
Yeah.
Obviously. But the main part of that for me was the silence. It's what, because we're not allowed to say that Black Lives Matter.
No.
We're not allowed to say I can't breathe. We're not, you know, we're just meant to take so much.
And take. Yeah.
Not say a word. It's always turn the other cheek, be the bigger person. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I'm going to, because there is a rage here that I should be allowed to express. Other groups can express their rage and it's perfectly fine, but we do it. It's an uprising, or it's, you know, why is that? But yeah, sorry, I gushed enough.
No, it's okay.
That quote was a lot. Where was the thinking with that one as well?
You know, that was like at the end of the book, and you know, we've seen this character who has gone through literally hell and back. She's gone through so much, and I really wanted that to reflect her train of thought in that moment. The fact that she's no longer gonna take this like on her knees. She's gonna fight back. One of the things I said is like a big theme for the book is a Black girl's anger. The fact that we are not, as Black women, like you said, we are not allowed to express our anger. We're not allowed to express our rage. You immediately get labeled as like too angry, or just, the angry Black woman. And, I can't tell you how many times I got that in high school.
Mm.
you know, um, just that labeling of like being something just because you want to express your dissatisfaction at something that is being done to you or done to your people. It's almost like, well, you can speak, but you can't speak too much.
Too, too
You
loud.
have to sort of like temper how you are expected to feel,
Yeah.
and the things that you're expected to like express. So that was my train of thought in that. The whole book, we see Sloane being angry.
Mm.
And I wanted her to be unflinchingly angry. I wanted you to see this main character that has so much rage in her because of literally everything that has been done to her people,
Mm-hmm.
her world. And I really wanted to show the escalation of that anger and show that, yes, it is justified for her to be this angry.
Yeah.
Same ways as Black people, as Black women, we're justified. Like when we express our emotions and we feel the things we feel and we're vulnerable and we're all that,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean we're only angry Black women. It doesn't mean we're angry Black women in the way that the stereotype goes and like whatever it says, but it just means that we have a lot here that it's affecting us.
Yeah.
And we want you to know that
It's
we're not happy with this and it's affecting us. How else are you supposed to show that? So that really was where I was in that moment. Her saying like, after centuries of like torment and oppression, it's like, yeah, we do see it. Like, we know that slavery happened. We know what our ancestors went through. And, it's something that somehow it's still happening. Somehow the color of our skin is still an issue.
still an issue. Yeah.
Still an issue.
Yeah.
So it's like, why?
Yeah.
How are you not upset over that? How are you not fed up?
Yeah.
Well, we're fed up. We're tired of having to say their names time
Yeah.
and time and time and time and time again. So I really wanted that to reflect that. And I think the whole ending was just, that was like where I was in that moment. Like, just, you're going to take whatever it is that she dishes out.
Yeah. You gonna get this work.
Yeah, you're going to literally.
You get this smoke, puppies. No, I really do appreciate that. And I think, like I was saying at the top about my apprehension going in, I love it because as a reviewer, podcaster, author, all these little things I am, I am expected a lot of the time. This is from what people have said to me, to kind of be that advocate and that pusher for everything Black. And don't get me wrong, I got my Issa Rae on. I'm rooting for everybody. I am rooting for everybody Black. But there is this thing sometimes where I don't necessarily want to be pigeonholed the same way people want to pigeonhole.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I want to thank you essentially for giving me a book that had all the trauma struggle and the trauma narrative, but didn't feel I've lost the word, but it didn't feel the trauma for trauma's sake, if that makes sense. I read Black fiction and it is just about like, oh my gosh, the cute white boy was being racist to me, and then I overcame it and blah, blah, it's like it's that same kind of regurgitation of just really quite standard struggle narrative, which I was quite bored with. So I really do appreciate that you were able to prove me wrong and open my eyes to reading something that I could resonate with from the Black experience, from the negative experience, but take something positive away from it, rather than reading a book that just says, okay, so another book about us being nothing got printed.
Right. Yeah.
So I really do appreciate that for what this is, because it's powerful is the word I used. It's a powerful book in a way that is, for a lot of people, because it needs to be, that is still digestible.
Mm-hmm.
It's not too
Yeah.
over your head. It's not too, oh, I couldn't figure that out. There's not too much, otherworldly names or
Mm-hmm.
incantations. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm Black and I still struggle with it. I don't think whole pages of, it's
Yeah.
to digest, but it's digestible as well as being rich, and just being really intense and emotionally and character driven. And I really love it. And I think it's
Thank
amazing.
you.
I think you're amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. On
Honestly, I wanted to touch on that too, just the idea of trauma book, because I know that this is something that a lot of authors have also spoken out on.
mm,
And just like the need for publishing to stop picking up books that are just only focusing on like the Black pain and the Black
yeah,
trauma.
mm,
For me, recognizing that in writing Blood Scion, it's like I don't, like you said, and I'm glad like that's something you took from it, because it's like, sure, there's a lot that happens in the book, but I hope that by the end of it, you're seeing a girl who is fighting back. You're
yeah,
seeing a girl she's saying that I am more than my trauma. I am more than all of these things that has been done to me. I have a voice, I have a name, and I'm gonna basically take that back. That's, for me, that's the reflection of like Sloane's journey that was in the book. Because yeah, it's like, it's important to, and I think this goes for publishing a lot, it's important to know that there's a whole lot to Blackness, beyond just trauma.
yeah.
There's a whole lot, like there's,
The same for everybody else. There's just
yeah, it's the same, exactly, so
you
it's just
rom-coms and missing princesses and secret marriages and, we're
yeah.
not like a special entity about us that we only have one type of story to tell, and it's
Hmm.
just really frustrating.
Yeah, and it's time to change that aspect. And I am so grateful for the authors who are coming in, and they are writing these books that are just so incredible, so beautiful, focusing on like shedding light on other aspects of Blackness beyond just the Black pain and the Black trauma,
Yeah,
because I think that's just so necessary and it's so needed.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you so, so much. I mean, there's so much other stuff that I didn't touch on.
I know.
Too much fun, and it was just really good. But once again, for joining me today, Deborah. Last couple of questions. What's next for Blood Scion? Is it a duology or a trilogy?
Oh my God, duology. I am ready to wrap this book up.
I'm loving the whole influx of duology right now. So trilogies are great and everything, but sometimes stop dragging it out. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
this was the beginning of her journey. This was the second half
This
of it.
is the end. Exactly.
I'm digging it. What's the timeline for that? So have you drafted? Are we editing? Or when are we going to get it? What's going on, my friend?
I will say it's being drafted. I'm hoping for like a 2023 release. Fingers crossed. We'll see. I mean, that's what it's supposed to
That's
be.
what it's supposed to be.
So we'll see. But I mean, it's being drafted. I can say that it's a lot happens. I love the direction that the story is going. Obviously, reading to the end, you get to kind of really understand a little bit that, okay, things are about to get real. So
That
yeah, I just
ending.
yeah, so I just really love where it's headed, and I hope at least that a lot of people are gonna love it too. But there's what I really love about it is that we really get to dig into like just the spirituality in like a really cool way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people like, I want to meet more science, and I'm like, it's
Oh my
okay. Yeah.
is when you've got the different orders or the different, light
Yeah,
elemental magic, your first thing is, oh, what can the others do? Do you know?
others do. Yeah,
Obviously, you've got the divination one, and then obviously you've got
yeah.
the elemental ones. It's like, I want to see other cool shit. So yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah,
No, there's like there's a girl who she's descended from like the goddess Oshun, who's like the goddess of like beauty and love and sensuality.
yeah.
And you would think, well, what can that do? Can that cause harm? It causes harm.
Love
It
that.
causes harm. So I am really excited for everyone to meet her, because I feel like I'm having more fun writing her story than like She's just,
might have a spin-off. Might have a
I
spin-off.
know, she's just basically stolen the show. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for readers to hopefully read and love book 2 just as much as, you know, you
No,
guys have embraced book 1.
no. I am ready. And as always, that I like to, you know, throw it out there with my little book friends. If you're ready to send me an arc of that book, I am ready to have it. Okay? Thank you very much. Remember me, come publish time. I want
Don't
that.
worry, I got you.
Like, but everyone who comes off this, we're besties.
Yeah, basically at this point.
I'm telling everyone that Deborah Falaye is my closest friend. It's absolutely fine. So once again,
Oh man,
I keep gushing, but I can't do it enough. Thank you for joining me
thank
today.
you.
It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Your book is wonderful. You are
Thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you.
And I just, you know, wish you all the best and all the success with all your ongoing, this series, any other series you get.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my God, this is great. Honestly, I think this is like why I love doing this, because it's just getting a chance to actually talk to you. I feel like it takes it away from like the DMs and like, you know, just this means everything to me. And thank you so much for everything you said about Blood Scion. You literally almost made me cry, by the way. I had to pull myself together.
I'm here
Thank
for.
you.
Thank you once again, and thank you to everybody listening, watching, etc. Obviously, reach out to myself, Charlie Author, and Deborah Falaye on social media. On Instagram, it's just all the spellings are there.
Yeah.
The information will be in the descriptions and things like that, and all the links to listen or watch later on. Join me, obviously, for another episode. I'm not sure what the episode will be. I mean, this is going to be a lot to come away from. But yeah, make sure you join for all of that. Thank you once again for listening, everybody. Have good days, evenings, afternoons, wherever you are in the world. Have a good one. Bye-bye.